The conference room fell silent as David Fletcher placed both hands flat on the polished table. Around him sat representatives from 43 different species, each one wearing expressions ranging from amusement to outright contempt. The holographic display behind him showed smoking ruins of 3 human settlements: New Providence, Terra Nova, Hope's Landing, 12,000 civilians dead in coordinated strikes. "This is your final warning," Fletcher said, his voice steady despite the tremor in his chest. "The attacks on our colonies must stop immediately. Earth is prepared to respond, but not in the way you expect." The Saurix delegate, a massive reptilian creature named Scrix, let out a hissing laugh that echoed through the chamber. "Threats from herbivores. Your species negotiates. You mediate. You write strongly worded letters. 3 decades in galactic civilization and humanity has never launched a single offensive operation." Fletcher met the creature's yellow eyes without flinching. "We chose not to. There's a difference." "Weakness disguised as philosophy," a Chitara representative clicked from across the table. The insectoid's mandibles clacked in what passed for laughter among her kind. "Your military engagements are public record. Small defensive fleets, limited weapons. Every conflict ends with you seeking peace before victory. Earth lacks the biological aggression for true warfare." Other delegates nodded or made their species equivalent gestures of agreement. Fletcher had seen this coming. Humanity's restraint, carefully maintained for 3 decades, had been catalogued and analyzed. Every military action reviewed. Every response measured and found wanting by species who viewed warfare as ritual combat or territorial display. "We have rules," Fletcher continued. "Engagement protocols that govern how we respond to threats. These protocols exist for specific reasons." "Yes, to hide your inadequacy," Scrix interrupted. "The Dominion Alliance voted this morning. Human space will be absorbed into our territories. Your emotional attachment to diplomatic solutions has ended. We claim 17 systems currently marked as human expansion zones." Fletcher reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small data chip. He placed it on the table with deliberate care. "This contains historical records from Earth, wars we fought among ourselves before joining galactic civilization. Study them carefully." "Ancient history," the Chitara delegate dismissed. "Primitive conflicts with chemical explosives and metal projectiles." "Those wars killed more humans than your entire species population," Fletcher said quietly. "We didn't stop fighting because we lost. We stopped because we won too completely, too efficiently. We developed weapons that could end civilizations and then had to develop rules to restrain ourselves." Scrix leaned forward, his bulk making the chair groan. "If humans were such fierce warriors, why hide it? Why pretend weakness?" "Because we hoped you'd never need to learn what we learned." Fletcher stood slowly. "Every engagement you've witnessed, every measured response, every peaceful resolution that was Protocol 7, minimum necessary force, proportional response, maximum restraint. We've been operating under those restrictions since joining the galactic community. And if we reject your warning," Scrix's tone dripped with mockery. Fletcher tapped his communication device. A single coded burst transmitted across light years to Earth. "Then humanity operates under Protocol 0. No restrictions, no restraint, no rules except victory." The chamber erupted in clicking, hissing, and various forms of alien laughter. Fletcher walked toward the exit, his footsteps the only human sound in the room. "Run home, Ambassador," Scrix called after him. "Tell your people the Dominion comes. We'll teach you what real warfare means." Fletcher paused at the door. "You're not understanding. We already know what real warfare means. We spent 5,000 years perfecting it on each other. The protocols weren't to protect us." He looked back at the assembled delegates. "They were to protect you." The door sealed behind him, cutting off the renewed laughter. Fletcher walked the curved corridors of the space station alone, his reflection distorted in the metallic walls. His hands shook now that no one could see. 30 years. 30 years of careful diplomacy, of showing just enough strength to be respected but never enough to frighten, all ending because arrogance couldn't recognize mercy. His communication device chirped. The response from Earth came faster than he expected. Protocol Zero confirmed. Admiral Rebecca Stone's voice held no emotion. Authorization granted. Engagement protocols suspended. All military assets releasing from standby status. How long until first response? Fletcher asked. Fleet elements already in position. We've been preparing for this scenario since first contact. A pause. David, are you certain they won't stand down? Through the station's windows, Fletcher could see Dominion warships gathering. Hundreds of vessels, proud and gleaming, configured for what they considered battle. Against them, 3 small human patrol craft hung in space, utterly outmatched by any conventional assessment. They think we're prey, Fletcher said. They've never seen a species that developed warfare as science rather than instinct. They don't understand that humans created rules of engagement not to fight fairly, but to survive fighting ourselves. Then they're about to receive an education. Stone's voice hardened. Deep space shipyards are activating. We're bringing out the real fleet, the one we never wanted to build. God help us all, Fletcher whispered. God help them, Stone corrected. We tried peace. We warned them. Now they'll learn why we needed those protocols. The connection went dead. Fletcher stood alone, watching the Dominion fleet maneuver into attack formation. The human patrol craft didn't move, didn't flee, just waited with the patience of apex predators who knew the hunt had already begun. Somewhere beyond Pluto, ancient shipyards hummed to life for the first time in 3 decades. Stealth fields dropped, weapons systems activated, and humanity finally removed the training weights they'd worn since joining galactic civilization. The galaxy was about to remember why humans invented the concept of total war. Intelligence Officer Taileyes of the Prismary Collective stared at her display screen, crystalline structure pulsing with confused colors. The data made no sense. 3 days ago, human space contained 47 registered vessels, standard patrol craft, light defensive platforms, nothing threatening. Now her sensors detected 312 signatures, and growing. Rerun the scan, she ordered her assistant. Equipment malfunction. The young Prismary reset the array. The numbers climbed higher, 418 contacts, all broadcasting human identification codes, all appearing from nowhere. Commander Scrix needs to see this. Taileyes transmitted the data to the Dominion flagship. Immediately. On the bridge of his warship, Scrix examined the intelligence report with growing irritation. Humans are deploying sensor decoys, trying to appear larger than reality. Pathetic desperation. Sir, these signatures match capital ship classifications, his tactical officer reported. Mass readings indicate vessels 3 times larger than anything in our database. Impossible. We've monitored human shipbuilding for 30 years. Their largest construction facilities produce science vessels and cargo haulers. Scrix dismissed the concern with a wave of his clawed hand. Advance the fleet. We'll sweep aside their illusions. But Taileyes, reviewing data through multiple spectrum analysis, felt her core temperature drop. The signatures weren't decoys. They were real, solid, and they'd been hiding in ways that violated her understanding of physics. A transmission cut through all Dominion channels. No request for clearance. No diplomatic preamble. Just a simple broadcast that every ship in the fleet received simultaneously. This is Admiral Rebecca Stone of Earth Defense Command. All Dominion vessels are ordered to withdraw from human space immediately. This is your only warning. Scrix laughed, the sound reverberating through his bridge. The herbivores make demands. Reply with our terms of surrender. Before his communications officer could respond, his tactical display lit up with proximity alarms. A massive vessel dropped stealth fields directly in front of the Dominion fleet. The ship dwarfed everything around it. Smooth black hull, no visible weapons ports, no obvious propulsion, just presence. "Scan that vessel," Scrix ordered. The sensor operator worked frantically. "Sir, readings are fragmentary, hull composition unknown. Energy signature off all scales. It's like nothing in our database." "One ship against 400, Scrix growled. "Maintain course." On the human warship Consequence, Captain Annie Rodriguez sat in her command chair, fingers drumming against the armrest. Behind her stood Lieutenant Oliver Wright, his first deep space assignment, his face pale as he studied the enemy fleet on displays. 400 to 1, Wright said quietly. "Those aren't good odds." "They're terrible odds," Rodriguez agreed. She keyed her communications panel. "All ships, this is Consequence actual. Engagement protocols suspended per Protocol 0 authorization. You are weapons free. Show them what we've been holding back." Around the Dominion fleet, space rippled. Stealth fields dropped in cascading waves. 50 human warships appeared, then 100, then 200. Vessels designed not for exploration or defense but for one purpose: absolute destruction. Wright gripped his console as weapon systems activated. Railgun arrays that could accelerate projectiles to relativistic speeds. Missile pods containing thousands of AI-guided warheads. Energy weapons that tapped zero-point vacuum energy. Technologies developed in secret, tested in hidden ranges, kept dormant for 3 decades. "Sir, they're not deploying defensive formations," Wright observed. "They don't recognize the threat." "They don't understand what warfare means to humans," Rodriguez said. "They think it's about honor challenges and territorial displays. They never studied our history closely enough." Scrix watched the human fleet materialize with growing unease. "Battle formations. Prepare to engage." "Sir, recommend withdrawal until we assess new capabilities." Tail eyes transmitted from the intelligence vessel. "Recommendation denied. All ships open fire." The Dominion fleet launched its assault. Plasma cannons that had won a dozen territorial disputes. Kinetic impactors designed to crack station hulls. Weapons sufficient to conquer 3 smaller species in the past decade. The human fleet barely noticed. Rodriguez watched incoming fire splash harmlessly against shield systems derived from Earth's most desperate period of theoretical research. Return fire, full spread. What happened next would be studied in military academies for generations. The human response wasn't a counterattack, it was annihilation. Railgun slugs tore through Dominion vessels like paper. Missiles swarmed in coordinated patterns, overwhelming point defense through sheer mathematical precision. Energy beams didn't just disable ships, they vaporized them. 300 years of human warfare doctrine, refined through countless conflicts, applied with surgical precision. Scrix's flagship shuddered as hits penetrated shields. Damage report. Hull breaches on 12 decks. Shield generators failing. "Sir, they're not targeting our weapons. They're targeting life support." Wright felt his stomach turn as he watched Dominion ships go dark, life support systems systematically destroyed. "Captain, they're surrendering. Multiple vessels broadcasting stand-down codes." "Negative," Rodriguez said coldly. "Stone's orders, they wanted war, they get ours." The engagement lasted 17 minutes. Of 400 Dominion vessels, 63 survived, all dead in space, crews evacuating in escape pods. The human fleet hadn't lost a single ship, hadn't taken damage beyond superficial shield impacts. Scrix floated in his damaged command center, emergency lighting casting shadows across his scaled face. A transmission forced through his damaged communications array. "This is Captain Rodriguez. We're collecting your survivors. You'll be treated according to human conventions on prisoners of war. I suggest you study those documents carefully." A pause. "You attacked our colonies, killed our civilians. Then you laughed when we warned you. Did you really think we were showing you our full strength?" Through his cracked viewport, Scrix watched human ships move through the debris field with frightening efficiency. Rescue operations, medical support, organized, clinical, professional. "What are you?" he transmitted weakly. "We're the species that got so good at killing each other we had to invent rules to survive. Those protocols you mocked, we created them to restrain ourselves, not because we couldn't win without them." Rodriguez's voice carried no triumph, just tired certainty. "We spent 5,000 years learning how to wage total war. You just received lesson 1. Class is now in session." The colony world of New Dalton should have been an easy target. Dominion intelligence reported 3,000 human civilians, minimal defenses, agricultural settlements spread across 2 continents. Commander Varix assembled a strike force of 80 vessels, more than sufficient to force surrender. His fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel expecting panicked evacuation attempts. Instead, they found empty space stations, abandoned settlements, not a single human signature on sensors. "Where are they?" Varix demanded, his Chitara mandibles clicking nervously. "Scanning planetary surface," his sensor operator reported. "No life signs above bacterial level. Colony appears evacuated." "Impossible. Intelligence showed active settlements 48 hours ago." A warning beacon activated on every ship simultaneously. Human military frequencies. A recorded message played on loop. "You are entering an active combat zone. All vessels will be destroyed. No quarter given. No survivors taken. You have 30 seconds to retreat." Varix laughed, though the sound felt hollow. "Empty threats from an empty world. All ships establish orbital control." The 30 seconds expired. New Dalton's 3 moons exploded simultaneously, not destroyed by external weapons. Self-destructed. Thousands of tons of rock and ice converted to relativistic shrapnel in microseconds. The debris cloud expanded outward at impossible speeds, each fragment tracking on active targeting systems. Varix's fleet had nowhere to run. The shrapnel cloud enveloped them, tearing through hulls, shredding engines, disabling weapons. 40 ships went dark in the first 10 seconds. 20 more died trying to escape. Through the chaos, human warships emerged. Not dozens, not hundreds, just 5 vessels moving through the debris field like sharks through blood-thick water. Rodriguez watched from consequence as the Dominion fleet thrashed and died. Wright stood beside her, face ashen as casualty counts climbed. "They walked into a trap," Wright said. "We destroyed 3 moons just to create a debris field." "We evacuated the entire colony in 36 hours, Rodriguez corrected. "Moved 12,000 civilians to safety. Then we weaponized their home." She keyed tactical displays. The moons were equipped with fusion charges and mass drivers, remote detonated. Every fragment is tracking on dedicated AI systems. We turned a star system into a weapon. "This isn't war, this is murder." Rodriguez turned cold eyes on her tactical officer. "No, this is what humans do when we stop pretending. We don't fight for honor. We don't fight for glory. We fight to win so completely that the enemy can never threaten us again." Varix's ship tumbled through space, atmosphere venting from a dozen hull breaches. His crew scrambled for escape pods while he tried to process what happened. Humans hadn't just predicted the attack. They'd prepared the entire system as a killing ground. A transmission cut through emergency channels. "This is Lieutenant Oliver Wright of Earth Defense Command. We're offering one chance for rescue. Power down all systems. Abandon ship. We'll collect survivors." "Why?" Varix transmitted weakly. "Why offer mercy now?" "Because we remember mercy exists," Wright responded, "even when you don't deserve it." 3 days later, Dominion High Command assembled in their war room on Saurix Prime. Holographic displays showed tactical disasters across 17 systems. Every offensive met with overwhelming human response, not just defeated, annihilated. General Corvus, the supreme military commander, studied engagement reports with growing horror. They're not reacting to our attacks, they're predicting them. How? Talais, promoted to Chief Intelligence Officer after previous command failures, displayed her analysis. We've been monitored for decades. Every military exercise, every tactical doctrine, every command structure. Humans weren't just observing galactic civilization. They were studying us, learning our patterns, planning for this contingency. They infiltrated our systems. Corvus's scales flushed dark with rage. No need. Everything was public record. We broadcast our military exercises as shows of strength, published tactical manuals as cultural heritage, documented command hierarchies for diplomatic purposes. Talai's crystalline structure pulsed dim colors. Humans took all that information and built response matrices. They know how we think, how we'll react. They're not fighting our militaries, they're fighting our psychology. The holographic display shifted, showing human tactical patterns, small unit insertions, psychological warfare, destruction of supply lines rather than direct combat, strategies that made no sense to species who viewed warfare as honorable contest. They're attacking civilian supply stations, one general protested. That violates every convention of warfare. No, Talais corrected. It violates our conventions. Humans wrote different rules. They call it total war. Every resource, every advantage, every tactic that leads to victory. They developed these methods fighting themselves. Corvus pulled up historical records from the data Chip Fletcher left. Wars that consumed entire continents. Weapons that could end civilizations. Concepts like mutually assured destruction, scorched earth policy, strategic bombing, humanity's darkest achievements. These are war crimes, Corvus whispered. To us, yes. To them, Talais highlighted human military doctrine. These are lessons learned at terrible cost. They did these things to each other, then developed rules to never repeat them. The protocols we mocked were humans restraining themselves to our level of conflict. Now they're fighting at their level. A priority transmission interrupted the meeting. Footage from New Dalton, the debris field, the calculated destruction. Human ships collecting survivors with the same efficiency they'd applied to killing. And audio recordings, human communication during the engagement. Rodriguez's voice, weapons free, no mercy for the ships, maximum mercy for the survivors. Wright's response, I don't understand the distinction. Rodriguez again, we destroy without hesitation so we can rebuild without guilt. We kill efficiently so we can save effectively. That's what Protocol Zero means. We become the monsters necessary to end the fight, but we never forget we're still human underneath. The recordings ended. Corvus stared at the empty hologram space. They're not warriors seeking glory, he said slowly. They're exterminators removing threats. No, Talais corrected quietly. They're survivors who learned the hardest lesson in the galaxy, that the capacity for overwhelming violence must be balanced with the discipline to control it. We forced them to pick which side of that balance to show us. Across Dominion space, commanders received the same intelligence briefings, the same horrifying realization. They hadn't provoked a military response. They'd released something humans had spent 3 decades containing. And now there was no putting it back. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened under circumstances unprecedented in 4,000 years of recorded history. Representatives from every member species crowded the chamber, many attending remotely from fortified bunkers on their homeworlds. Chancellor Mora of the Valenty Federation called the session to order, her tentacles trembling visibly. In the past 8 days, we have recorded 47 separate military engagements between human forces and the Dominion Alliance. 31 Dominion military installations have gone dark. 17 colony worlds have reported human ships in their systems. The economic corridor through the Helios cluster is completely severed. Holographic displays showed tactical maps of Dominion space. Red markers indicated destroyed facilities. Orange showed damaged infrastructure. Blue represented human fleet positions. The blue consumed everything. "They're everywhere at once," a delegate from the Meridian Compact whispered. "How is that possible?" Admiral Stone appeared on the central display, transmitted from Earth Defense Command. She wore a simple uniform, no decorations, no ceremonial elements. Behind her, tactical officers coordinated operations across light years of space. "You're witnessing multi-theater warfare," Stone explained. "Simultaneous operations across multiple fronts, coordinated through advanced communications and autonomous AI systems. The Dominion expected sequential engagements, territory by territory, honor combat. We're showing them what industrial-scale warfare looks like." "You're butchering them," Mora said quietly. "No, we're defeating them." Stone pulled up casualty reports. Dominion military casualties, 43,000. Dominion civilian casualties, 216. Human military casualties, 97. Human civilian casualties, 0 since Protocol 0 activation. The numbers hung in shocked silence. 43,000 military deaths against 97 human losses, and only 200 civilians caught in the crossfire. "Impossible," the Chitara delegate challenged. "Those ratios defy probability." "They defy your understanding of warfare," Stone corrected. "We don't target civilians. We disable military capability while minimizing collateral damage. Every strike is calculated. Every weapon system designed for precision. We learned from 5,000 years of our own atrocities how to fight wars without creating humanitarian disasters." A Saurix military advisor projected tactical analysis into the chamber. "These engagement patterns match nothing in our military databases, except," he paused, pulling historical records, "except ancient Earth conflicts, World War II, Vietnam, the Middle Eastern campaigns. Humans are using strategies from their own past." "Because those strategies work," Stone said. "The Dominion studied our recent engagements and concluded we were weak. They never studied our history. They never asked why we developed such comprehensive rules of engagement." Fletcher, attending remotely from a secure location, stood to address the council. "We tried to warn you. For 30 years we operated under strict protocols, not because we lacked the capability for unrestricted warfare, but because we knew the cost. We'd paid it, against ourselves." "Then why stop now?" Mora asked. "Why show restraint for decades only to unleash this?" "Because the Dominion killed 12,000 civilians in coordinated strikes," Fletcher's voice carried quiet fury. "Because they laughed when we warned them. Because sometimes you have to speak in a language others understand. They understood strength. So we're showing them what human strength actually looks like." The holographic displays shifted to show Dominion leadership frantically attempting to coordinate defenses. Human psychological operations had infiltrated their communications. Fake reports, contradictory orders, strategic confusion. "You're in their computer systems," a Prismary delegate observed with horror. "You're manipulating their command structure." "We've been in their systems for 6 years," Stone admitted. "Dormant code in civilian trade software, backdoors in diplomatic communication arrays. We didn't activate them until Protocol 0 authorization. Now we're using them." "That's cheating," the Saurix advisor protested. "That's warfare," Stone countered. "Real warfare, not your honor duels or territorial skirmishes. We use every advantage, every weakness, every psychological pressure point. Because when humans fight wars, we fight to win decisively enough that we never have to fight them again." Wright transmitted new intelligence from Consequence. "Admiral, Dominion High Command is requesting ceasefire negotiations." Denied, Stone responded immediately. We told them the terms unconditional surrender, nothing less. Mora leaned forward. Admiral, surely negotiations would save lives. Whose lives? Stone asked coldly. Every day we negotiate is another day the Dominion reorganizes, another chance for them to find allies, another opportunity for this to spread. We're ending this cleanly, completely, permanently. A transmission cut through all channels. Scrix, held aboard a human vessel as a prisoner of war, appeared on displays. His scales were dull, his posture defeated. I address the Council, he said slowly. As commanding officer of Dominion forces at New Providence, I witnessed the beginning of this conflict. I laughed at Ambassador Fletcher's warnings. I believed humans were weak, biologically incapable of true aggression. He paused, struggling with the words. I was wrong. Humans are not incapable of aggression. They're far too capable. They constrain themselves deliberately. What we mistook for weakness was mercy we never earned. They destroyed my entire fleet in 17 minutes, Scrix continued. 400 ships against less than 100 human vessels. We didn't even slow them down. But afterward they collected our survivors, treated our wounded, fed our prisoners, followed rules of war we didn't know existed. His eyes met Fletcher's through the display. You tried to tell us that humans created conventions on warfare not to fight fairly but to remain human while fighting. We didn't listen. Stone terminated Scrix's transmission and addressed the Council directly. We're offering the Dominion one chance: complete surrender, full occupation, reconstruction under human supervision, or we continue until their military capacity is zero. And if they refuse, Mora asked, then we demonstrate what humanity developed when we got really good at warfare. Stone's expression never changed. Orbital bombardment, strategic elimination of industrial capacity, siege warfare perfected over millennia. We can reduce Saurix Prime to pre-industrial status without killing a single civilian, just like we did to ourselves in the resource wars. The council chamber descended into chaos. Delegates arguing, species calculating whether they were next, everyone suddenly understanding that humanity hadn't joined galactic civilization as equals seeking acceptance. They joined as apex predators pretending to be herbivores, waiting, watching, hopping they'd never need to hunt again. Fletcher watched the pandemonium with tired eyes. 30 years of careful diplomacy, destroyed in 8 days. But 12,000 human civilians were avenged, and the galaxy finally understood the message. Peace wasn't weakness, it was a choice, and humans had just shown everyone what they'd been choosing peace instead of. Saurix Prime hung in space like a jewel, homeworld to 17 billion Dominion citizens who'd never questioned their military supremacy. Now they watched the sky with growing dread as human warships established orbital positions. Not attacking, not demanding, just waiting with the patience of creatures who'd already won. General Corvus stood in the planetary command center, surrounded by dead screens and silent communication arrays. The human cyber warfare campaign had been brutally effective, every military satellite compromised, every defense grid locked down, every command frequency jammed or redirected. They could have struck anywhere. Instead, they did nothing, just orbital presence, silent, watching. It's psychological, Talais explained, her crystalline structure pooling dim anxiety. They could destroy us in minutes. Instead, they're making us think about it, making us imagine it. Fear is more effective than actual violence. How long do we wait? Corvus asked. Until we break, she said simply. That's the lesson. Humans don't just defeat enemies. They make them understand defeat so completely there's no possibility of future conflict. 3 days into the siege, Rodriguez stood on Consequence's observation deck, watching Saurix Prime rotate beneath her. Wright joined her, carrying 2 cups of coffee they'd synthesized from the ship's stores. Admiral Stone ordered full surrender terms, Wright said. Unconditional, complete disarmament, occupation forces, war crimes tribunals. How do you feel about that? Rodriguez asked. Wright was quiet for a long moment. I joined Earth Defense because I believed in protecting humanity, not because I wanted to be part of an occupying force. Neither did I, Rodriguez admitted. But here we are, victors in a war that should never have happened, holding the fate of billions in our hands. She sipped the bitter coffee. This is the part they don't talk about in military academies. What comes after victory? Sir, incoming transmission, the communications officer called out. Dominion High Command, they're ready to discuss terms. Rodriguez and Wright returned to the bridge. The holographic display showed Corvus and his senior staff, all wearing expressions of defeated resignation. We surrender, Corvus said without preamble, unconditionally, as requested. Transmitted surrender documents require signatures from all Dominion leadership, Rodriguez responded. Full accountability, no anonymous surrenders. Corvus's scales flushed dark. You want us on record, personally responsible. We want you to own this, Rodriguez said. You ordered attacks on civilians, you laughed at peace offers, you chose this war. Now you'll stand accountable for that choice. And then what? Corvus asked. Executions show trials. Then reconstruction, a new voice cut in. Admiral Stone appeared on the display beside Rodriguez. You'll stand trial according to human conventions on war crimes, fair proceedings, legal representation, transparent justice. Some of you will face consequences. Others will be cleared if evidence supports it. And our people, Talais asked quietly, will be fed, sheltered, protected during occupation. Stone pulled up documents. We're transmitting the complete Marshall Plan, historical records from Earth's reconstruction efforts after our own total wars, how we rebuilt Germany, how we reconstructed Japan, how we took defeated enemies and turned them into allies. The Dominion leadership stared at the documents scrolling past. Economic aid packages, infrastructure rebuilding, educational reform, democratic transitions, detailed plans covering decades of recovery. You've done this before, Corvus said slowly, to yourselves. Multiple times, Stone confirmed. We're experts at destroying civilizations because we destroyed our own repeatedly, but we're equally expert at rebuilding. That's the other half of the lesson. The capacity for overwhelming violence means nothing without the discipline to know when to stop. 2 weeks later, human occupation forces landed on Saurix Prime. Not in military dropships, but in transport vessels loaded with medical supplies, engineering equipment, and reconstruction materials. Lieutenant Oliver Wright commanded a peacekeeping unit assigned to the capital city. His first day on planet, he expected hostility. Instead, he found confusion. Dominion civilians who'd been told humans were coming to destroy everything watched in bewilderment as engineers repaired infrastructure damaged in the cyberattacks. Medical teams offered free treatment. Supply officers distributed food to disrupted distribution networks. This makes no sense, a young Saurix civilian told Wright through a translator. You defeated us, why help? Because the war is over, Wright explained. You're not our enemy anymore, you're our responsibility. Rodriguez supervised reconstruction efforts from orbit, coordinating thousands of personnel across the planet. The work felt strange after weeks of calculated destruction, but it felt right in ways warfare never had. Scrix, released from confinement as a gesture of good faith, worked alongside human forces. His military career was over, but Stone had offered him a position as cultural liaison, someone who understood both sides, someone who could help translate not just language but philosophy. I still don't understand you, Scrix admitted to Fletcher during a planning session for economic recovery. You could have exterminated us. Instead, you're feeding us. Because we remember being on both sides, Fletcher said, victors and defeated, occupiers and occupied. We learned these lessons through our own blood, the hard way. He pulled up historical footage from Earth, cities rebuilt after nuclear fire, enemies becoming allies, nations that had fought total wars sharing technology and prosperity decades later. This is possible, Scrick stared at the images. It's happened repeatedly. Germany and France fought 3 wars in 70 years, killed millions of each other's citizens. Now they're partners in a unified federation. Japan and America reduced cities to ash, then became strongest allies. Ireland and England, centuries of hatred, now peaceful neighbors. Fletcher met Scrix's eyes. We know reconciliation is possible because we've done it. The question is whether you're willing to try. Across Sorix Prime, similar conversations played out. Human personnel didn't act like conquerors. They acted like construction workers with a job to complete. Every interaction carefully managed to demonstrate that occupation didn't mean oppression. The Galactic Council observed these developments with amazement bordering on disbelief. Species who'd witnessed humanity's capacity for devastation now watched them rebuild with equal efficiency. They're not just warriors, Mora said during a council session reviewing occupation progress. They're survivors who learned how to recover from anything. Rodriguez, invited to address the council, stood before the assembled delegates looking tired but determined. We didn't want this role. We spent 30 years hopping we'd never need to demonstrate what Protocol Zero meant. But since you forced us to show you our capacity for destruction, we'll show you the rest too. How to end wars, how to rebuild, how to transform enemies into partners. Why? The Chitara delegate asked. What do you gain? Peace, Rodriguez said simply. Real peace, not truces or ceasefires or negotiated settlements that last until someone feels strong enough to break them. Peace built on mutual understanding that war costs too much, that rebuilding is harder than destroying, that some lessons can only be learned through experience. She pulled up footage of Dominion civilians working alongside human engineers, repairing damaged systems together. This is what humanity offers the galaxy, not just superior weapons or better tactics, but hard-earned wisdom about how to survive ourselves. The council chamber was silent. Every delegate watched reconstruction efforts with new eyes, understanding finally crystallizing. Humanity hadn't joined galactic civilization to conquer it. They joined to share lessons learned at terrible cost. And now, whether the galaxy wanted it or not, class was in session. 6 months after the surrender, the Treaty Conference assembled on a neutral station orbiting a dead world. Every species sent their highest-ranking officials. The chamber itself had been redesigned, no longer the circular arrangement that implied equality. Now a rectangular table with humanity seated at the head, their position earned through demonstrated capability. Fletcher watched delegates file in with mixed emotions. Some looked resentful, others fearful. A few showed genuine curiosity. None looked dismissive anymore. That era had ended permanently. Admiral Stone called the session to order. We're here to establish new conventions for galactic civilization, rules that every species will follow, standards that prevent what happened with the Dominion from happening again. You're imposing your will on sovereign species, the Meridian Compact delegate protested. We're offering wisdom purchased with blood, Stone corrected. You can accept it voluntarily or learn it the way we did, fighting wars that consume billions of lives. Your choice. The documents appeared on holographic displays, comprehensive regulations based on centuries of human experience. Geneva Conventions adapted for galactic warfare. Hague Conventions expanded to include energy weapons and AI systems. Rules of engagement that protected civilians. Treaties defining war crimes and establishing enforcement mechanisms. These are restrictions on warfare, Corvas, attending as part of Dominion Reconstruction leadership, observed. Why would the victors limit themselves? Because unlimited warfare destroys everyone, Fletcher explained. These rules aren't to protect enemies from us. They're to protect us from ourselves. Humanity developed these conventions after wars that killed tens of millions. We created laws not because we wanted to fight nicely, but because we nearly destroyed ourselves fighting too effectively. Wright, now promoted to senior tactical advisor, stood to present military sections. Every species here practices warfare as ritual or instinct, honor combat, territorial dispute, dominance display. Humanity evolved warfare as science. We got too good at it. These conventions are the emergency brake we installed on our own capacity for destruction. A Valenti delegate studied the documents. You're teaching us restraint. We're teaching you survival, Rodriguez corrected from her position as human military liaison. The galaxy is young. You're developing weapons that can crack planets, energy systems that could destabilize stars, AI networks that might decide organic life is inefficient. We've walked that path. We know where it leads. These conventions are the guard rails that kept us from driving off the cliff. The session continued for days. Debates about enforcement, arguments about sovereignty, resistance from species who viewed the new rules as oppression. Fletcher handled each objection with patient firmness, repeatedly showing historical examples of why each rule existed. Your species practices ritual combat to first blood, he told the Valenti delegation. That's admirable, but what happens when you develop weapons that can kill from orbit? When first blood means vaporizing cities? These conventions aren't limiting you now. They're preparing you for capabilities you'll develop eventually. Tail Eyes, working as Dominion representative during Reconstruction, supported the human proposals. Her testimony carried weight, speaking from direct experience of unrestricted human warfare. We thought we understood combat, she told the assembly. We were children playing with sticks while humans had been manufacturing nuclear weapons. They could have exterminated us. Instead, they defeated us, then taught us why restraint matters. I'm alive because humans follow rules they created for themselves. Without those rules, none of the Dominion leadership would have survived. The final vote came on day 7. Unanimous adoption of the Galactic Conventions on Warfare. Every species signing documents that formalized humanity's hard-learned lessons as universal law. But the treaty conference addressed more than warfare. Stone presented the second phase of proposals: Joint Defense Force, integrated command structure, combined training programs, all under human strategic direction. You want to command galactic military forces? Mora asked carefully. We want to prevent the next war, Stone said. And if prevention fails, we want someone in charge who actually understands warfare beyond theoretical exercises. That's humanity. Like it or not, we've earned that responsibility. The proposal sparked fierce debate until Rodriguez stood with a simple demonstration: tactical simulations against theoretical threats, alien AI uprising, extragalactic invasion, internal rebellion, every scenario run with and without human strategic command. The results were undeniable. Human-led responses succeeded with minimal casualties. Traditional galactic approaches resulted in catastrophic losses. 5,000 years of warfare experience showed itself in every decision tree, every tactical adjustment, every strategic calculation. You're not asking to lead us, Corvus said slowly. You're showing us that you must lead us, for our own survival. We're showing you reality, Stone agreed. You can resent it. You can be angry about it. But you can't argue with mathematics. We're better at warfare because we've done it longer and harder than any species in the galaxy. That makes us responsible for preventing others from learning those same lessons. The vote on Joint Defense Force passed with strong majority. Humanity would coordinate galactic military responses, train other species' forces, establish standards and protocols, not through conquest but through demonstrated competence. 3 years after Protocol Zero activation, Wright stood in a training facility on Saurix Prime, teaching young Dominion officers about rules of engagement. His students included Scrix's nephew, a bright young soldier eager to learn from the species that had defeated his people. "Why do humans limit themselves?" the young officer asked. "You could dominate the galaxy." "We could," Wright agreed. "But then what? We'd be alone, surrounded by resentful subjects waiting for chance to rebel. No allies, no partners, just occupiers growing paranoid in our fortress." He pulled up historical images. "We tried that multiple times on Earth. It always ends the same way: collapse, revolution, destruction." "So you choose weakness." "We choose sustainability," Wright corrected. "Real strength isn't capacity for violence. It's capacity to build systems that don't require constant violence to maintain. That's what these conventions create. A galaxy where warfare becomes obsolete because everyone follows rules that make war unprofitable." Rodriguez, now serving as Supreme Commander of Joint Defense Forces, addressed the graduating class of the first Integrated Military Academy. Human, Saurix, Chitara, Prismari, Valenti officers standing together. "You represent the future," she told them. "Not conquest, not domination. Cooperation built on mutual understanding that warfare costs too much. You'll return to your homeworlds carrying knowledge humanity wishes we never had to gain. Use it wisely. Use it sparingly. And if you must use it at all, use it to protect those who cannot protect themselves." Fletcher, retired from diplomatic service, watched the ceremony from a quiet observation deck. 33 years since humanity joined galactic civilization. 3 years since they showed the galaxy what they really were. And now, finally, the difficult work of building sustainable peace. "Do you think it will last?" Scrix asked, joining him at the window. The former enemy officer had become his closest friend during reconstruction efforts. "I think we gave them every tool we developed to make it last," Fletcher said. "The rest is up to them, and to us. Making sure we never stop choosing peace, even when warfare would be easier." Below, human and alien officers celebrated together. Warriors who understood warfare well enough to avoid it. Leaders who'd learned that true victory meant never fighting again. The galaxy had learned humanity's darkest lessons. Now came the harder part: living by them.